Guys, welcome back. So this is the second video on the lesson money and banking, and in this video I'll be discussing the financial institutions, financial organizations in Sri Lanka. Okay, so in this slide you all can see a diagram. I have given you all the financial organizations which you can see in Sri Lanka. So guys, when you take financial organizations, you can categorize them as banking sector and non-banking sector. So first we'll rush to the non-banking sector areas. You have three three categories in non-banking sector. You have other deposit accepting organizations. That is, they are specialized to, they have been authorized to accept deposits from the public, like registered finance companies, thrift and credit corporate societies, or cooperative rural banks. Okay, and then you have other specialized financial organizations who have been authorized to carry out specialized finance functions like leasing companies, primary dealers, stockbrokers, merchant banks. Okay, and you have contractual savings organizations. They also promote savings, but in terms of other names. You have insurance, EPF, ETF, public service provident fund, private provident funds. Okay, now we are coming to the banking sector. Okay, this area is a bit of important area. Okay, so when you talk about the banking sector, you have the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, that is the monetary authority of Sri Lanka. Okay, and we have licensed banks. So licensed banks, also under licensed banks you have two categories: licensed specialized banks and licensed commercial banks. The difference is, guys, licensed commercial banks can carry out foreign currency transactions and maintain current accounts, but licensed specialized banks cannot deal with current accounts or foreign currency transactions. Okay, when it comes to licensed specialized banks, we all know we have public banks and private banks. Private banks, of course, we have local banks as well as foreign banks. So this is the structure of the financial organizations in Sri Lanka. Okay, now we are discussing about the central bank. So central bank, we know that is the monetary authority of Sri Lanka. So central bank has two main objectives: economic and price stability and monetary system stability. So if we are talking about economic and price stability means you have to maintain a low level of inflation. Okay, when the inflation level is low, your interest rates will go down. It will promote employment. Then it will help to achieve sustainable economic growth, okay, which will again promote employment. So economic and price stability is very important for an economy to achieve sustainable development or sustainable economic growth. Okay, and why this economic and price stability as an objective, why it is important? First one, as I said, it promotes economic growth. Second one, it enables efficient utilization of resources, minimize the risk of producers, consumers and investors, and finally it helps to make economic planning successful. Okay, so this is the importance of economic and price stability as an objective of central bank. And the second objective, monetary system stability, that is the effective functioning of financial system. Okay, you can't have crashes in the financial system or temporary breakdowns in the financial system, no. And why the financial system instability occurs is a question. So we'll see why. Financial system instability occurs. You can have disruptions to banking systems, disruptions in payment systems, excessive asset price volatility, or excess liquidity in the market. So this can cause instability to the financial system or the monetary system. Okay, so why this monetary system stability is important? See, it's given to you in the slides also. It makes the financial institutions and the financial markets run effectively. Okay, and then to avoid balance of payment crisis, to finalize the asset prices, and to protect market liquidity. Okay, so this is why the stability in the financial system or the monetary system is important. Okay, next we are coming to the functions of central bank. You have the core functions, those are the main functions, and we have agency functions. Okay, so I'll just read through the functions, guys. You all also can read through those. Core functions, you have conduct of monetary policy, conduct of exchange rate policy, management of official foreign reserves of Sri Lanka, issue and distribution of currency, licensing, regulation and supervision of banks, finance companies and primary dealers. So these are the core functions. Okay, so regarding the monetary policy that we are going to discuss in this lesson, okay, issue and distribution of currency we discussed, right? So monetary authority, the country's monetary authority is responsible for the issue of currency. Then agency functions, we have management of public debt, foreign exchange management, acting as the agent in microfinancing and rural credit schemes. Then management and administration of EPF. Okay, so EPF is managed by the central bank. Okay, now we are coming to the monetary policy. What is monetary policy? Monetary policy regulates the money supply of the country. See, the monetary policy is the process of regulating monetary instruments to influence the interest rate and money supply to reach the objectives of economic and price stability and monetary system stability. So guys, we use the monetary policy as a tool to achieve central bank's objectives. Okay, and in the monetary policy regulation, we have three targets. You have the operational target, that is which is the amount of high powered money. You already know what is high powered money, what are the determinants and what are the components. Then intermediate target, that is the interest rate and money supply, that is what is being controlled by the monetary policy. And the objective of controlling money supply is the stability of the monetary system and economic and price stability as well. Okay, so there are certain instruments which are being used for the effectiveness of the monetary policy. Okay, and we can categorize them under two main headings, which are quantitative methods and qualitative methods. Quantitative methods, guys, we are going to discuss in detail. So we have SRR, that is statutory reserve ratio or requirement, and we have the policy rates under which you get SDF, standing deposit facility rate, standing lending facility rate, and bank rate. And we have open market operations. Okay, those are the quantitative methods. And we have qualitative methods. First one is moral suasion. Moral suasion is the central bank gives a set of rules to the commercial banks to follow when granting credit. Okay, that is moral suasion. Then credit ceilings. Central bank limits the supply of credit to non-important areas. That is what you call credit ceilings. Then collateral requirements follows. If the central bank thinks that granting a loan to this area, okay, or this sector is important, then they might reduce the collateral requirement for the loans granted to that specific sector. Or if the central bank thinks granting a loan to that specific area or the sector or the industry is not that important, it is a non-important area, then they will increase the collateral requirement. Okay, and we have selective interest rates. The same way collateral requirement operates, selective interest rates also. If the central bank thinks that sector is important, they can give the loans at a lower rate. If the central bank thinks that is a non-important area, then the loans can be given at a higher rate. Okay, that is what you call selective interest rates. So now we'll have a look at quantitative methods. First one is SRR, statutory reserve requirement. What this is when the commercial banks, Okay, when the commercial banks receive a deposit, they have to keep a proportion of that deposit with the central bank as reserves. Okay, that is what you call SRR. This is a percentage. Okay, assume you get assume you are a commercial bank and you get 1,000 rupee deposit and your SRR is 10%. You have to deposit 100. You have to keep 100 with the central bank as reserves. Okay, see, whenever the percentage increases, the reserve level will go up, no? So when you learn the money creation process, you will understand whenever the reserve percentage goes up, whenever the reserve ratio goes up, the money creation process will go down. Money gets contracted. That means money supply and SRR has a negative relationship. Whenever SRR increases, money supply of the economy will go down. Okay. Next, we are coming to policy rates. So I told you we have standing deposit facility rate, standing lending facility rate, and we have the bank rate. Standing deposit facility rate is, guys, that is the interest rate that the banks receive for their overnight deposits at central bank. If the banks has excess liquidity, they can deposit those at the central bank overnight. Okay. So the interest, the return that they get for their overnight deposits at central bank is what you call the standing deposit facility rate. Okay, we'll come to the relationship later. Then we have standing lending facility rate. That is the rate at which the central bank lends money to the commercial banks for their liquidity problems overnight. Okay, that is the interest rate charged for overnight lendings by the central bank from the commercial banks. Okay, and we have something called standing rate corridor. Standing rate corridor is, guys, we have interbank call money market. Interbank call money market is a market which exists within commercial banks. When they have liquidity issues, okay, when they have liquidity issues, they can borrow from other banks. And the rate at which they borrow from other banks, that is what you call the bank rate. See, interest rate at which central bank grant advances to commercial banks for their temporary liquid purposes. That is what you call the bank rate. Okay. Now this bank rate has a relationship with the interest rate that is being charged for the loans that are being provided. Okay. You see, if the bank rate goes too high, the interest rate that is being charged will be too high. Now central bank needs to have control over that. Now, the SDFR and SLFR is the control. You see, if the banks has excess money and if they give it to the central bank, the return that they get is the SDFR, standing deposit facility rate. Okay. And standing lending facility rate, that is the return that they get if they borrow from the central bank. So will the banks be willing to borrow money from a commercial bank at a higher rate than at which it can borrow from central banks? No. Can you see? And also the banks will not be willing to deposit money or provide a loan to any other bank at a lower rate than it can receive by depositing money at the central bank. Okay. So, standing rate corridor is the interest rate gap of the overnight transactions of interbank call money market, which is managed using SDFR and SLFR. So, always, guys, okay, assume you have a deposit and you want to take a loan. The loan interest that you pay will always be higher than the interest that you will receive for your deposit. Okay. So in the standing rate corridor, standing lending facility rate will be the upper limit. Okay. And standing deposit facility rate will be the lower limit. Can you see? Standing lending facility rate is going to be the upper limit and standing deposit facility rate is going to be the lower limit. If the money at which you are, if I'm a commercial bank and if I have to lend money to another commercial bank, I have excess liquidity, and if I want to lend money to another commercial bank, I will always go for an interest rate which is higher than the SDFR. If the rate is lower below SDFR, I will not give it to that bank. No, I will go and deposit at the central bank. The same way, if I have to borrow, I will always look for a bank who has excess liquidity and is willing to lend money at a rate which is lower than the rate at which central bank lends. Yeah, if not, you can directly go and borrow from the central bank. No, so SDFR and SLFR makes the corridor to the bank rate. Okay, so that is how the central bank controls the bank rate, and that way it affects the interest rate in the economy. Okay. Now that is all about the central bank and the monetary policy. And now we are coming to commercial banking. What is a commercial bank? It is a financial intermediary who is authorized to carry out all the banking activities, including demand deposits and foreign currency transactions. So I have very clearly given to you in a table format what are the functions of licensed specialized banks, what are the functions of licensed commercial banks. So this is licensed commercial banks, and this is licensed specialized banks. Okay, I'm sorry, here it is given. Okay, so licensed commercial banks, they can maintain demand deposits, foreign currency transactions, checks. Obviously, if you don't have demand deposits, how can you deal with checks? You can't. Overdrafts again deals again with demand deposits. Money creation and issuing travelers checks. So all those things only the commercial banks can do, but the specialized banks cannot do. But what both the banks can do is they can maintain time and savings deposits, granting term loans, standing orders, pawning, safe locker, investments. Those things both the commercial banks as well as the specialized banks can do. Okay. Now we are coming to the deposits of a commercial bank. Deposits of the commercial bank, these are the liabilities of the commercial bank, and here are the assets of a commercial bank. This is the loans of a commercial bank. Okay, so deposits of a commercial bank, you have demand deposits, savings deposits, and you have fixed deposits. Okay, and when it comes to foreign currency deposits, you have NRFC accounts, RFC accounts, and RNNFC accounts. You have non-residence foreign currency, residence foreign currency, and residence non-national foreign currency. Okay, and guys, in the loan side, overdrafts and term loans, it is one way. Okay, and you can also classify these loans as business loans and personal loans. Okay, overdrafts is a loan that is granted for current account holders where they can write checks up to a certain limit even though they don't have balance in their current accounts. Okay, and term loans, you have short term, medium term, and long term loans. Okay, these areas you don't have to go much into detail, but just know these things are there. Okay, now this is the clash. Commercial banks, you take a commercial bank, whenever you go and ask for money, what if the commercial bank says no, we don't have money to give you? You're going to withdraw money from your account. And if the commercial bank says no, we don't have cash, that is going to be an issue. Yes, and also if they maintain all the deposits, assuming that all the customers will come and demand for the loans, demand for their deposits at the same day, and if they hold all the deposits, all the cash with them, with what are they going to pay the interest? So this is the clash. There you call that this is the the conflict of objectives, profitability versus liquidity. So I have given to you the asset structure of a commercial bank. Okay, so you have liquid assets, loans and advances, and fixed and other assets. So guys, this first set of liquid assets, these are the cash items or primary reserves. Those are the most liquid assets. and these investments are the near liquid assets. Okay, so these generate a return. Loans and advances, fixed and other assets, they generate a return. Okay, but the liquidity towards the latter part, the liquidity is very less. Can you see? And they want to make profits also, but their profitability is high. But if you maintain more liquid assets, more cash items, your profitability is low. If you have cash in hand, there's nothing, no? Assume you have 10,000, 1 million, 1 lakh or 1 million. If you keep that 1 million under your pillow and you sleep, it doesn't make a return. Either you can, if you invest in shares, or if you at least open up a fixed deposit and deposit it there, it will generate a return. So that is profitability versus liquidity. So assume you open up a fixed deposit and deposit the 1 million for a year, for a 1 year period. In the middle of 1 year, that is after 6 months, you liquidity issue arises. Yes, you can get it, but practically that's a fixed deposit, right? Fixed deposit. So for a certain period of time, you will have to get rid of your liquidity. You will have to keep the liquidity away to earn the profits. So that is the clash that the commercial banks are facing as well. They need to have liquid assets. They need to have investment properties as well. Why? Because they want to make profits and also to maintain liquidity. Why? Because why they want liquidity? Because they want to have the public trust on them. Okay. So this diagram will clearly show you how this liquidity profitability conflict happens. You see, higher the cash items that you maintain, higher your liquidity levels, but your profitability is low. But lower the cash items, that is higher your investments and loans, your liquidity is low. Assume you get whatever the money and you give it out for a loan for someone, and the customer comes and asks the money from you, you don't have cash to give. So liquidity is low, but your profitability is going to be high. Okay, so guys, I hope this video is clear. Okay, so the important areas, you will have to know what this liquidity profitability clash, and you will need to know the quantitative methods, the standing deposit facility rate, the interest rate corridors, how it operates, and yes, monetary policy, of course, you will need to know. So guys, that is it for this video. So I discussed about the institutions, we discussed about the central banks, we discussed about the commercial banks, and we discussed about the monetary policy as well. So the next video, I'll meet you guys. We'll be discussing the calculations, how the money creation process happens. So thank you.